power, whether red or blue. They could not care less about Texas, me and you. They created this give me country that don't value hard work. For a Texan to survive, all we need are some seeds and dirt. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. We believe in family and we value our community. Gladly lend a helping hand to a neighbor in need. And we don't believe that government should provide for all of society's needs. No, it's the pride of a Texan to give to others voluntarily. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Gotta save your country, for it's long gone. They like our tax dollars and they love our natural resources. They don't want to see us driving trucks, they'd rather see us riding horses. And now they want to ban our guns, you know, especially the ones that look scary. But may I remind you of the Gonzales Cannon and the Alamo heroes we buried. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save our country, for it's long gone. This last verse is straight from the Texas Constitution, Article 1, Section 1 and 2. Look it up. Texas is an independent state, yet presently we suffer. We no longer possess the right to locally self-govern. And now it's time as a people in which all political power is inherent. And in such manner we find expedient, we reform or abolish our government. I said, Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone. Texan rise, don't you hear your call? Got to save your country, for it's long gone.
Good evening, friends. It's that time, right, where I grab my cup of coffee, my little midweek break in the evening, and we talk about all things TEXIT. I get to decompress a little bit, and I'm excited to be here with you tonight. Let's, for those of you that are brand new, let me go ahead and introduce myself. I am Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk, right? So pour a cup of coffee and join me. We're going to I got a lot to talk about, right? Some decompress, and we've got a lot of issues that we need to discuss. And of course, tonight, as always, I'll be taking your questions. And, it's going to be fun, right? I can imagine you guys have tons. It's been a pretty busy week, and there's a lot going on, a lot to unpack, and I know you guys have tons of questions. Let me get a couple little housekeeping things out of the way. If you are joining us on either of the YouTube channels, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and drop your questions in chat. Chat with everybody that's on tonight. If you're watching on any of the Facebook pages, oh, the irony, right? If you're watching there, drop your questions in the comment section, and be sure to like and share and do all those things. Let's pack it out, right? Let's get a bunch of people on here. Let's talk TEXIT. And if you're watching via the TNM app or over on the Roku channel, we thank you very much for joining us over there. It's been an interesting technical week too, where that's concerned. We'll talk about that. Maybe some of you have questions on that. But in the meantime, a reminder, we're doing this thing like we did last week, right? So if you comment, be sure to use hashtag TEXIT in your comment and be entered to win. I'm going to be giving away a signed copy of the TEXIT book tonight, personalized for you. And in addition, we'll throw in a couple little goodies to send over your way as well. Man, I got all kinds of things I can send you over here. So be sure to do that. We'll hold that drawing at the end of the broadcast tonight. All right. Well, where to begin, right? By the way, we may have a special guest. I don't know. It's possible. I'm waiting to hear back if we can do this. Yep, nothing yet. But if we have a special guest, if he pops on, I will I'll make it work. I promise. Also, if you have questions tonight, be sure to drop them not only in the chat, but at the bottom there, you'll see it. Coffee Talk at thetnm.org. That's Coffee Talk at thetnm.org. And let me get my window open over here. There we go. So if you have questions, be sure to drop them there. And of course, Kara is working production tonight, so she is watching the chat for your questions and will be queuing them up for me. And I will get to them as time permits, right? I try to get to all of them. I don't always have time to get to all of them, but all of them are quite appreciated. All right. So as you can tell, sleeves rolled up. I rolled in from doing Timcast last night, and it was a great experience. Yes, we were interrupted by a certain announcement from a certain someone. But it was fun nonetheless, right? We're able to get in there and give the take from a TEXIT perspective, right? And there's an invitation to come back and really unpack the TEXIT issue a lot more. So I want to thank Tim and the whole crew over there, Cassandra, all the folks that were able to make that happen. They were so hospitable, and I am very appreciative for the opportunity. And weird circumstances, but it happens, right? It's just part of the way it works. Yeah, so literally do the Timcast thing, get a little bit of time to crash, maybe a couple hours of sleep, back up, back on the plane, back here, rolled off, walked in the door, poured a cup of coffee, meeting with a legislator, and then got a chance to grab a couple of hours of snooze time and then right back at it. And here we are tonight talking about all these things that we need to talk about. So as you read in the description, right? News is out. It's been teased for a long time. I mean, it was pretty much the worst kept secret in the world. But in fact, the TNM has finally filed suit against Meta, right? You may know them by their common name of Facebook, but it is official. The Texas Nationalist Movement has sued Facebook. And if you don't remember what that's all about, I will encourage you to go back and watch Coffee Talk back, I don't know, a few weeks ago, right? I mean, it started all at the beginning of October when folks just like yourself went over, tried to post texitnow.org into a post, and Facebook started clamping down on it, saying that it was a violation of their community standards, which frankly, at this point, I think we should all find laughable. to think that they would even claim to have community standards. It's kind of funny when you think about it. Uh, but that being said, our attorney Paul Davis filed suit on them in Jefferson County, right here where I sit, and it's that has been a whole other issue. We won't get into that, but the lawsuit has been filed, and some of you have asked about, well, what about all those screenshots we submitted? What's happening with that? Well, essentially, what's happened is we are filing suit to get an injunction against Facebook to prevent them from doing what they did. Additionally, everyone who submitted screenshots and checked the little box at the bottom, we submitted the information, right, that there were more than just the T&M, more than just me, to ask the court to certify it as a class action, to say, look, they've censored enough people on this thing that it should be a class action lawsuit. So this is the suit that deals specifically with the censorship of the link, but it is not and likely will not be the only lawsuit that we file, because there is an element of defamation, right? Because they are citing that, and if as you read the article and you kind of go back and look, they are saying that it is a link, posting links to texitnow.org is prohibited, because you are prohibited from posting links that promote dangerous organizations. Dangerous or harmful, I think, is the term that they use. So that's happening, right? It's the lawsuit is filed. It's going down. I've been getting texts the whole time I've been away. And of course, it never fails, right? Big things happen, and then boom, I'm out of town. Something happens, and I've got to work from the road. But it's going down. Paul's doing a phenomenal job. And in fact, this case could prove to be kind of groundbreaking, because it will be the first case of its nature since the passage of Texas anti-social media censorship law, right? So we're breaking some ground here. But as I promised, look, we're going to fight back. Anytime that we get this slander from here on out, I put the line in the sand, right? And I said, we're going to cross this line. We're going to cross this line because we're fully committed. And what that means is, once we cross that line, we're going to take to the wall, and we're going to defend the concept of independence. We're going to defend our mission. We're going to defend the organization, and we're going to defend our reputation. And that is against all comers, right? Just so happens that the first idiot out of the chute happened to be Facebook, right? Just so happened that they happen to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And look, I get it. Censorship is, Facebook censorship is a kind of people just take it for granted now, right? But this is different than Facebook blocking your grandmom's Trump meme, right? This is a completely different ball of wax, because Facebook is picking a side on a political issue, right? They're picking a side on a political issue, specifically on Texit, and they are attacking the TNM in doing so. And so, we've got a tremendous case. We've got a tremendous case, and we're going to go full on. Now, of course, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to need your help, right? It is not expensive. I mean, it's not cheap to do all these things. Paul is very kind, very generous to us, but filing a lawsuit against Facebook was not really particularly in the cards for us. So I'm going to encourage you right now, if you have an opportunity, if you can spare an extra 5, 10, 25, whatever you can spare, go make a donation to the TNM at tnm.me/donate. We're going to need all that. This is all off book, right? It's all money that we did not have allocated. We're running in a legislative session, and we're trying to throw everything we can at that. So this is a little bit of a different situation, but it's the difference in playing offense and defense. One is offense, one is defense, but the way we play defense, it definitely looks like offense. So just going to encourage you to do that if you have an opportunity. If not, whatever you can do helps, right? So anyway, The lawsuit is going down. We will obviously keep you posted as things develop. But it's looking like November the 30th is going to be a pretty interesting day for us. So we'll see how that goes down, but we will keep you posted. And if maybe Paul will come on here on a live stream and answer your questions. A reminder before we move on, if you do have any questions, be sure to email them to coffeetalk@tnm.org or post them in the chat wherever you're seeing this in the comments of the chat. And when you comment or post a question, be sure to use hashtag TEXIT. We're going to do that drawing at the end of the broadcast. Let me get my coffee. I am woefully undercaffeinated. I told them that on the plane, and they kept bringing me coffee. Like they brewed an entire pot of coffee just for me. It was pretty fun. They were really, really good folks. All right. Let's get down to I tell you what, let me check questions first before we move on. How does that sound? Let's see what we got going on here. Okay, this is fun. All right, and this actually ties in. So John Lindsay says, last week you tweeted about leaving the union without inheriting debt. With all due respect, it's delusional to think Texas would be able to walk out for free, right or wrong. Okay, so what I tweeted out, and I don't obviously don't have it to where I can pull it up, but what I tweeted out was actually not my words, right? I actually wrote about federal debt. You won't ever hear me refer to it as national debt because the United States is not a nation; it's federal debt, right? But I wrote about it in the TEXIT book. I talk about it on the website. If you go to texitnow.org, there's a whole article about that in the FAQ section. And the position that I took in the book is that Texas would have to probably take a portion of the debt, but the calculation is always going to be where the negotiation takes place, right? So that's always been my take on it, is that we will have to take a portion of it, but how small or large that is really up to how all of that is finally calculated. And I cite 3 separate methods that have been shown around the world. Now, interestingly enough, since the publication of the book, there have been actually 2 additional pieces of information that have come out, right? So 2 different scholarly viewpoints. There's one from a paper that was published by Terry Halsey that was actually published on the Texian Partisan, but it's also, I think you can go over to academia.edu, right? And you can find it. And essentially, the argument that he makes is that from an international law perspective, Texas would owe nothing simply because we are not required to pay an exit fee. So there's this whole principle over the last 75 years that essentially says you can't have these unions, these larger countries cannot pose what's called an onerous debt or an exit tax on those that are withdrawing. So I think that's an interesting perspective, right? But what I actually tweeted was an excerpt from a book called "I Want to Break Free." I actually talked about it last week by Dr. Matt Quartrup, and let me I'll show you this because actually I have some news about Matt. Let me just share this with you because I want to show you a little bit about who he is. Boom, there he is. All right, so here's Matt. Let me just show you here. This is Matt, and the interesting thing about Matt is he's a professor at Coventry University, right? And he is Oxford educated. He got his doctorate at Oxford. I mean, he is the foremost global authority on the issue of independence and independence referenda. Matter of fact, you'll see him quoted a ton about the Scottish independence referendum, about Brexit. And his real claim to fame as an academic is he is the only well-known, sort of expert in this field that accurately predicted the outcome of Brexit, right? That it was going to pass. So the man has got one heck of a CV. I mean, he is just incredible. So he released this book, as I said last week, called "I Want to Break Free," and it deals specifically with this issue. It really tackles this topic of people like us around the world and what has to happen. And I hope some of you went and looked up that book, got the Kindle version because I know it's available. I think Amazon shows it available in paperback, but I think the paperback doesn't release until January, right? So I pre-ordered it because I'm familiar with him and I'm familiar with his work. And when I saw he was releasing it, I was excited. But I pre-ordered it. I got it on Kindle the night that it dropped, and by the end of the first day, I had already read it. I mean, I consumed it in every waking moment, and then I went back and just did what I could to pick up specific notes. But hopefully, some of you have done that, and some of you have read it. But that excerpt that I tweeted was literally a grab from his book, right? What he said about that issue. So, I took a tack that it was, I think, a little more conservative, right? That was just a little more reserved. That said, yeah, we're probably going to have to pay some, but what that amount looks like is going to be up to negotiation. We've got two folks that operate in the academic arena, specifically in law and international law, and specifically, where the good doc here is concerned in exactly what we're doing, who say that that's not the case at all. That we could actually walk away with nothing, and there's not a whole lot the United States as an institution could do about it. Now, the one thing to bear in mind is that if we did take a share of the federal debt, then that also means that we get whatever assets were bought with that federal debt, which is kind of an interesting proposition when you think about it. So there is a situation under which that state that you were separating from, that entity, would say, okay, yeah, please go away without taking any of this debt because we don't want to give you anything, right? We don't want to have to divvy up the china, right, and the silverware. We'll just keep the china and the silverware. You guys go away and we'll call it even Steven. So those scenarios do exist. So do I think that it's delusional? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, the good doctor cites many examples in his book of where that very thing happened. So it's interesting. I would encourage it as a read. If you're interested in the mechanics of a movement to make it happen and what that looks like from a constitutional perspective and an economic perspective and a debt perspective, he covers a lot of those topics, and it dovetails really nicely with the TEXIT book. So thanks for your question. All right. So let's talk about, speaking of, let me just go ahead and say this too. So the good doc and I have had some really great conversations over the last week or so. And the doc has agreed, Dr. Matt Quartrip has agreed to work with the TNM to consult with us on the Texas referendum and specifically be an academic and legal source related to the Texas Independence Referendum Act and our work in the upcoming legislative session. So we're bringing some academic heft to the table. And it's, I got to tell you, it's going to be really nice to, from here on out, when the media decides to drag out those desiccated husks of professors to come out and say, oh, you can't do that, it's unconstitutional, or it'll never happen, and all that, to literally have the preeminent expert on the issue come out and go, no, you're an idiot. You're not only are you wrong, you're dead wrong. Go back in your cubby hole, go away. I mean, we're bringing the heat, boys and girls. It's happening. And I got to tell you, it adds an element to this thing that the opposition can't touch. They just can't. We're bringing the all-star team because we want to win. So yeah, you'll be hearing more about that as we progress, and we've been talking a lot about some of the other independence movements in North America and the Western Hemisphere. Lots of very interesting things are on the horizon. All right. Before I get to the issue of the border and the TEXIT bill, let's see. Let's see if we can take a couple of more questions so we can stay on track. Okay, Stacy says, where is the next TEXIT banner flyover going to be? I suggest the San Jacinto Monument. When we get ready to do it, it will not be a secret, much like it was not a secret when It was not too much of a secret when we did it over Austin. We needed a little bit of a shock factor there, but we'll probably do some other flyovers, but we've got some other things in the works. And I got to tell you, this legislative session is going to be a wild ride. I hope y'all are ready. I hope you're ready. Okay. Good. Okay. So I tell you what, I'm going to hold on to this question from Sam. I'm going to hang on to this question from Sam and from Bad Brad, and from Nick, because those are all about the TEXIT bill, and I'm about to get to that. Let me take one more from John. John says, I'm confused. As a private company, isn't Meta protected to moderate as they wish, even if it is politically motivated? It's an interesting debate, and one would think that, but at the moment that Meta and these other companies take $1 of taxpayer money, they're no longer in that category, right? So if you go read the actual filing of the lawsuit, under the new Texas social media censorship law, they're treated as common carrier, right? So they are going to obviously try to claim protection under federal law to say that they are a platform and not a publisher. But at the very moment that they begin to make those sort of editorial decisions, and particularly in our instance, where they are classifying us as a dangerous or harmful organization, and essentially making a political pronouncement based on absolutely no fact, absolutely no basis, right? In fact, everything we say is completely contrary to that. So the only thing left is to say that they are essentially engaging in viewpoint discrimination, which they'll try to claim federal protection. We will fight against that, but ultimately this is really about disparagement, right? So number one is, let's enforce the Texas anti-social media censorship law. Let's ride that out. Let's make that happen. But the other side of this coin is the issue that I just raised, which is the one of defamation and disparagement. So, you don't get protections from that as a private company. If they came out and called us terrorists or child molesters or whatever else, they're effectively accusing us of criminal behavior. If you look at the Facebook community standards, and you see what it takes to be classified as a dangerous or harmful organization, and you are one of us, then you would be as incensed as I am, because we don't classify. They've essentially said you were the same as ISIS, right? Or Al Qaeda. That's what they're saying. So, I think you should get your dander up. I know I did. Okay. So let's get that one. All right. So let's talk about, let's do that. Let's bring this over here. All right. So let's talk about the TEXIT bill. Or do y'all want to do Abbott and the invasion? Which one do you want to do first? All right. All right. Let's do the border. All right. The people have spoken. So while I was on the road, right? I mean, everything broke, right? Between the Facebook suit and the Trump announcement, and then we had all of a sudden Abbott's going to declare an invasion, and he comes out and he says, "I am invoking the relevant articles in the U.S. Constitution, the Texas Constitution. I'm declaring an invasion, and these are the things I'm going to do." So on the surface, everybody went, "Hurrah, he declared an invasion." Now, what people failed to do was read beyond the "I'm going to declare an invasion" and look at the list of things that he said he was going to do. Now, I'm going to tell you, a declaration of invasion, it is handy. I mean, it's nice. It's what we've asked for, but understand that's not the only ask. The only ask was not declare an invasion, because honestly, if that was it, he could just write it on a piece of paper and then it's done, and still nothing gets fixed, right? So it's what comes after that. So at the moment you declare an invasion, what do you do to treat it like an invasion any different than what you're already doing? Well, according to Abbott's list of things that he is going to do, absolutely nothing different, right? Gunboats on the Rio Grande, already doing it. DPS patrols, already doing it. National Guard on the border, already doing it. I mean, you start going through the list. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna take them, we're gonna catch them, and we're gonna take them back to the border." Well, who's at the border to receive them? The federal government, which is the problem that we've got right now. Is they're turning them over to the federal government, and the federal government is running them through the pipeline, putting them in detention centers or hotels, then processing them out, and then releasing them into Texas and the rest of the United States, either just letting them loose, sending them by bus, or sending them by airplane, and then giving them taxpayer money via the NGOs. And the cycle just goes on and on and on. So literally, unless he comes out with something new, the invasion declaration means nothing. For him to make the invasion declaration meaningful, number one, he has to fully militarize the Texas State Guard. That means that he has to take that money that was going to the National Guard. He's got to shuffle that money straight to the State Guard. He has to fully militarize them, remove any sort of enlistment caps, but fully militarize them, open up enlistment, and then deploy the State Guard as a border protection force. Now, people will say, well, the State Guard's down there. Yes, but they are not fully militarized. They're in support duties, right? But you have to deploy them. You have to fully militarize them. You have to deploy them as a border protection force, and you have to authorize them to shoot at the cartels when the cartels shoot at us. And you have to authorize them to turn people away at the river. Do not give them to the federal government. Repel an invasion. Repel an invasion doesn't mean catch it like an astronaut diaper and funnel the crap someplace else, right? That's not what that means. So, I understand the excitement when people heard that he was going to declare an invasion, but understand from a practical standpoint, he's doing nothing differently, right? Militarizing the State Guard, tasking the State Guard with it, that keeps the mission from being federalized and having the troops sent back home by Biden, because the State Guard cannot be federalized. So, yet again, something that should have been encouraging, that should have been a phenomenal, encouraging sign, was instead, it looks like it may yet be another stunt. And people are going to say, "Oh, you're never happy." Well, no. When we have a crisis that is an invasion and it gets treated like a stunt, no, I'm not going to be happy. Why should we have to settle? Why should we have to settle for theater when we have a real crisis on our hands? Why should we? So, look, that's my take. We're going to be watching it. We all know that at the end of the day, the only way we're ever going to secure the border is to do so as a self-governing independent nation, to do the thing that all self-governing independent nations around the world do and secure their own borders, right? All right. So before I get to the TEXIT bill, I told you I was going to have a special guest, and this is going to cause us to hop a little bit back in what we were talking about. But I'm going to introduce you guys to our wonderful fired up Texas lawyer. It's Paul Davis, the man of the hour, who filed the suit against Facebook. And hey, I'm glad you're not wearing that little kind of sleeveless number.
So wait, what sleeveless? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Hey, I look good in that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that.
I work out, so.
Oh yeah, me too. Round is a shape, Paul. Round is a shape.
That is true. It is a shape.
Well, hey, so everyone, this is Paul Davis. He is the attorney that is representing the Texas Nationalist Movement in this lawsuit against Meta. And if you guys have any questions, I would encourage you to drop them into the chat right now. I know that we've had some come in via email. We had a few earlier, Paul. So why don't you just kind of introduce yourself to everyone, let them know your background, kind of give them an overview of what it is that we're doing here.
Yeah, sure. So my background is pretty I don't know, colorful, I guess you might say. I was one of those crazy J6ers who had this insane notion that there was something wrong with the 2020 election. So went to DC and was just outside the Capitol protesting, and got caught on video. Actually, I caught myself on video. Really, I made an Instagram story talking about why I was there and what I was doing, and then some jackass journalist for Salon.com in Austin ripped my Instagram story, made it go viral, and then I was I was working as a litigator for 10 years with big law firms. I had kind of finally got this really cushy job that I loved for Goosehead Insurance. I was in-house counsel and human resources director, and they fired me the next day just for exercising my First Amendment right. So, I was pretty much blackballed by the legal profession at that point, and I started my own firm. And it was a rough journey, but my main background is employment law and constitutional rights and civil rights litigation. And so, once the vaccine mandates were announced, I was one of the only conservative lawyers in the country who knew anything about employment law, and so that kind of played nicely for me. So,
that's where we first met, right? We were speaking together at Grayson County Conservatives.
Yeah.
And,
no, I remember that night.
You were talking about the employer vaccine mandates then.
Yeah. That was kind of what put me on the map. And it was just, I just really feel like God just set me up. You can't really make this stuff up. I mean, I lost my job, and because of that was available to help hundreds of patriots all over Texas, all over the country, to save their jobs. And we're still, filing lawsuits over that and arbitrations and, doing mediations and everything to hold these employers accountable. So that was pretty exciting. And then I got my feet wet in the censorship, the anti-censorship stuff. I was the first lawyer to file a lawsuit on that for Chad Prather when he was running for governor. And we did get a temporary restraining order. So
for people who aren't familiar, Paul, not to interrupt, but for people who are not familiar with that case, man, tell them what happened with Chad, because that was a big deal.
Yeah, it really was. I had met Chad. I had spoken with him at a few events, and I saw on a Monday on his Instagram that Facebook had pulled the plug on him, and wasn't letting him post. Had completely shut down, restricted his account. And it was 7 days before the election. So I was when I saw that, I was insanely busy. I was trying to save somebody's life in the hospital. It was a gruesome story, actually. I saw that. I reached out to Chad. I was like, man, you need some help with this? And he was like, absolutely. So on Thursday, we had kind of gone through the channels to get, work with Facebook to see if they would restore his account. Because, we're just like, this is BS. You can't just censor a candidate a week before the election, and they wouldn't budge. So we filed the lawsuit on him on Thursday. On Friday, Friday morning, I was in court. I guess it was Friday afternoon. I was in court with their lawyers, and the judge gave us a temporary restraining order. So that was pretty cool.
Fantastic. Well, since then, we've had the law passed by the Texas legislature that purportedly eliminates social media censorship, and now it's in effect. So do me a favor, kind of tell everyone about what that law is, what it purports to do, and kind of how it plays into what we're doing.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, the law was in effect at the time of the Prather suit, it was the same law that I used, because there's really no other grounds, at least not back then, to sue a social media platform, because you had Section 230, which is just a huge issue. It's a huge, obstruction to that type of litigation. But the Texas law, it went into effect in December 2021. It's pretty clear. It says if the platform, which is defined as first of all, in the preamble to the statute, it's got some pretty strong statements. It says, Texas legislature says, we value free speech in the state of Texas. I'm paraphrasing, but every Texan has a right to the freedom of expression, the freedom of sharing ideas in this state. And basically, we're not going to put up with this anymore. And so if a platform censors a user, which they define censorship as really any type of limitation they might place on your account, includes, outright bans, putting labels on your posts, shadow banning, which, it doesn't say shadow banning, but moving you down, decreasing your visibility, basically, which right. I suffer from, which is why I'm actually suing. I keep trying to sue Meta, but I keep getting busy with clients like TEXIT. So,
hey man, we're sitting right here. I mean, we can hear that, right?
Right. No, I'm happy to do this lawsuit, but at my own expense. I'm still getting shadow banned, but it does prohibit that. And then if you file a lawsuit, your remedy is, if you can prove that it was because of your viewpoint, which that's really not difficult, because all you have to do is just show, well, what community guideline, what community standard did I violate? And
Right.
they're not going to have an answer other than it's your viewpoint. So if you can prove that, you get an injunction, which is just an injunction is just when a court orders something other than monetary relief. So they will order the platform to stop censoring you, and then you're also entitled to your attorney's fees, and you can get a permanent injunction so they can never censor you again.
Well, all right. Well, then let's talk about where that leaves us. So, and we'll get to some of the comments and questions here in a second. So we filed suit, obviously dealing specifically with this disparagement, that defamation is still on the table. We haven't dealt with that yet. So kind of let everyone know how this is likely to play out from here, kind of what they should be expecting the next steps.
Well, normally you would file which is what we've done. You file an application for temporary. So the way injunctive relief works, you first file a application for temporary restraining order, and that you can usually get a hearing on that within a day, sometimes same day, next day, 2 days at the latest. Every court has a docket where it's a temporary, restraining order docket. You can get in pretty quickly. And then once you get a temporary restraining order, that can last for 2 weeks. If good cause is shown to extend it, the court can extend it up to 28 days. Then you have a temporary injunction hearing. A temporary injunction hearing is a full-on evidentiary hearing. You have witnesses, evidence, all of that. If you win the temporary injunction hearing, which is just in front of the judge, there's no jury or anything like that, then you get an injunction that lasts until trial. And then if you win at trial, you get a permanent injunction. That's just kind of an overview of how generally injunctive relief works in Texas courts. But here, we apparently the court staff doesn't understand these simple concepts. It's like they had never even heard of this. I doubt that's the case. I think it's just specific to us. But they were just like, well,
what?
Yeah.
What?
I know, right? Yeah. Imagine it. So they refused to set it for temporary injunction hearing until November 30th, which, that's just it's like, to put in context how ridiculous that is. A temporary injunction or a temporary restraining order, all you have to do is show that you're going to be immediately and irreparably harmed. And so nothing's going to happen to the defendant. It's just like a way to preserve the status quo until you can get a full evidentiary hearing. They're granted pretty routinely. Here, there's no harm to Facebook. I mean, what's the harm in them letting TEXIT post their link, right? But there's tons of harm to us, because literally the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court has said, if your free speech is censored, that is automatically irreparable harm, because it's a fundamental constitutional right. So we pointed all that out to the court.
Well, and I mean, think about it. I mean, literally, we're getting ready to go into a legislative session. We've got the opposition posting whatever lies they want to about the TEXIT issue, about us. And the handiest way to rebut that, which is information and links from the texitnow.org links, are not able to be used, right? We can't even post those as a rebuttal to the people that would attack us. So what they've effectively done is put their thumb on the scale in favor of the opposition.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And, you just, that's irreparable harm. There is nothing that can compensate you for having your fundamental free speech right deprived of you in this country. And
well, it makes me clutch my pearls. I don't know about you, but
well, yeah. I mean, the judge said, though, he's just like, well, this is not an emergency. I don't see this as an emergency. It's like, literally, by legal definition, it is an emergency, whether you like it or not.
Hey, welcome to Jefferson County, man. Welcome to Jefferson County. Exactly.
So we have currently, we're able to get a hearing set for November 30th at 9 a.m. That's going to be, currently it's set as a temporary restraining order hearing. But as soon as we serve Facebook with process, which I have the citation now. I have a process server. He's going to serve their registered agent in Austin. As soon as we get that, we will convert the temporary restraining order hearing to a temporary injunction hearing, because there's just no point in doing both at this point. And then, I mean, just to be honest, I'm not optimistic about our choices based on the vibes I'm getting from this court. They don't seem to like us. They don't seem to like our case. They're just making everything very difficult. And to give a specific example, I had to file this case 4 different times. They kept rejecting it. I've never had that happen ever. It was just all these technical, and they were obviously sandbagging me because they were like, so I filed it. So, you didn't include a request for a citation, which I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not a prerequisite for actually filing a petition, but okay, I'll play your little game. Yeah. And so I refiled it with the request, and they're like, oh, you need a case information sheet. I'm like, you can file that separately. So it's just like all these little things, and they're just basically giving us the runaround. It's pretty ridiculous.
Well, look, let me just, before we get to the questions and comments, I just want to tell you how excited I am to go into battle with you. This is going to be a high-ho Dario for all of us. And, it's what I was telling them before you came on. There is an element to this that is groundbreaking, specifically related to the social media law. So, we're used to living on the bleeding edge, being the pioneers, cutting a trail. And we're just so happy to be working with you, man. Let's get this thing done.
Man, I'm excited. And I don't want people to think, oh, we're not going to be victorious here. Like I would say we don't have a good chance of winning the temporary injunction hearing. Not legally speaking, we are absolutely entitled to the relief that we have requested. It's just, the judge has, he's the judge. He can do what he wants. And then if we lose, we'll request a speedy jury trial, because if a jury finds there's viewpoint discrimination, then the judge's hands are tied. If we can't get a speedy jury trial, then we'll appeal the denial of the injunction. But maybe we'll get it. Who knows? Maybe
it'll be interesting, when you're in there doing the jury selection, and you have to ask the question, do you know of anyone who has ever had a post removed from Facebook, and we won't be able to find a jury anywhere?
Yeah, I know. Exactly. We'll know immediately who all the conservatives are in the jury. Right. I mean, immediately.
That'll do the trick. Well, let's get to some comments. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right, here we go. Stacey Polly says, "I love you, Paul."
Oh, I love you too.
You're getting love from the T&M. Look at
Didn't she comment on my? I think she commented on on my Instagram earlier. I recognized the photo.
Hey, didn't the J6 thing tell you anything about Instagram, man? You need to stay off of there.
Well, they did kick me off. They like both Instagram and Facebook deleted my account, so I had to start from scratch. But unfortunately, it's just it's the best way to get business. So it's a necessary evil.
Okay, John says, welcome, Paul. Cheryl says, yay, Paul, welcome. Yeah, everybody's happy you're here. Travis, let's see here. Yep. Oh, man. Now you're getting hit on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that does happen, but that's okay.
Okay, here's one from Clark. Well done on the legal proof of independence. So that, I'm guessing he's talking about the tweet that you made. That's a discussion. Yeah. That's a discussion that we're having later, but not tonight. Okay.
Right.
We will tease everyone on that.
I have some ideas, like I really do, on that. I think they're viable.
We're gonna make history. You realize that?
Yeah. I mean, we got to that bill's got to get out of committee. I mean, they can't just kill that in committee.
Okay, Eric Riddle says, "Hey, Paul, your first 100 is in the bank."
Oh,
okay. There we go.
Not sure what that means, but
yeah, I asked him to donate to help out offset some of the legal expenses. Now, what Eric didn't tell you is that it's in the form of Applebee's gift cards.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. Melinda Lou says socials for Paul. She wants to know where you are on social media.
It's it's right there on my under my name. I don't know if it displays on the stream, but it's at Fired Up TX Lawyer, and it's that on every single platform except Facebook. I'm at Fired Up TX Lawyer 1 because I tried to change my username one time and screwed it up, and I lost the right to use at Fired Up TX Lawyer. So I'm at Fired Up TX Lawyer 1 on everything else at Fired Up TX Lawyer, like literally all the platforms except for like Gab, and I don't use Parler either. So
yeah. Okay, here we go. Howdy, thanks for the legal help.
You're welcome.
Yep, good stuff.
Love the photo.
Let's see what else we got. See what other questions we've got here.
Well, I love the John Wick photo there. I can't wait for John Wick 4. Those movies are just fantastic.
Okay.
Have you seen them?
Yes. You know what's funny? I literally had that very same conversation in the Tim Pool green room. last night. Yeah,
They're so
that,
good. They get better with
that,
every film.
yeah, and that and one of them asked me. He goes, when we were talking about something, he goes, we call that a red pill. That's like from the Matrix. I said, dude, they didn't just thaw me out and let me out of the home for this. I know what a red pill is.
I know, right? It's such a great analogy, though. I mean, that scene is such a great analogy for everything that's going on. I mean, the whole movie is the Matrix. I mean,
okay. Ron wants to know: could you have filed in a more friendly county?
I mean, possibly we could have maybe got one of the plaintiffs, but it would if we had. I mean, the lawsuit is for Texas Nationalist Movement, so if we had selected a different county, it would look a lot like forum shopping to the media, and that's I mean, yes, but it's probably not a good look, and we're entitled to the relief we seek, and the good thing is, the Jefferson County does not feed into the appellate court that's over Harris County and that area. So I think I haven't checked to see who all is on that appellate court, but it's not one of the like major Democrat strongholds. So at least we got that going for us.
Yeah, that was that. I think that's it's going to be a good thing. All right. Yeah, you got people asking, is there a way that we could change? So look, I think everyone's pretty straight on where we're headed. So go ahead and give out your socials one more time.
Yes, is at fired FIRE is fired up TX lawyer. So FIRED TX lawyer. And my main I spend the most time on Instagram, Getter, and Twitter. Those are I post on all of them, but I check comments on those three. I don't really look at comments on any of the other ones. So if you want to actually interact with me, any of those three. Okay,
fantastic. Paul, I appreciate you hopping on, man, taking the time out to deal with this and come say hello to everyone. People have been clamoring to visit with you and at least get to see you and talk about this case and everything else. So let me just extend the appreciation from the organization. We're going to go out there. We're going to fight this thing, and we're going to give it our dead level best to win.
Well, I'm very excited and proud to be TNM's lawyer, and thank you so much for the opportunity to do this and for having me on.
All right, man, let's go win.
All right, let's do it. Rock and roll, as you like to say.
All right, man.
All right.
We'll see you later, man.
All right, see you later, Daniel.
All right, guys, that's Paul Davis. Man, he's ready to go out there and charge the gates of hell with a squirt pistol, right, on your behalf. So let's go out there and let's win this thing. And we're pretty excited to be breaking ground, and we've got some other things we're working on too. There's a little tease there. No spoilers. Zero spoilers. None. Zip, zero, zilch. Nada. All right. He did mention this about the bill, and we were going to talk about this in a bit. And so this is the other piece of news that I got, and then I'll get to some of these other questions. But I want to go ahead and share this with you. I told you that I had a meeting immediately as soon as I got here, got a cup of coffee, got off the plane. We've been meeting with legislators pretty steadily, and I did tease this a little bit last week. But here we go. We have gotten back the draft of the TEXIT bill for this go around, right? So we are going to be sharing this with everyone. We are going to make it available. But I did get word today that it has been sent over to Ledge Council. As you guys know, it is the first step in the process of getting this thing filed, is getting the seal of approval. We feel pretty confident that we will have no problems with Ledge Council, since this bill is effectively the same thing that came out of Ledge Council last session, with the exception that we did change the referendum language back to the way that it was, right? That asked the question, should the state of Texas reassert its status as an independent nation? And, so we're pretty much sitting at the same bill. We updated the dates. We changed the question back to the way that it was supposed to be. And now, when we've got a preeminent academic like Dr. Quartrip on the hook, who's going to be working with us on this, we are going to be loaded for bear. We're going to have every base covered, subject matter experts dealing with every potential piece of opposition that we've got. And we've got legislators that are committed or are leaning our direction that are larger in number than we had last session. So that's always good. And there appears to be a play that we're going to be able to make on the Senate side as well. So I'm very excited about our prospects. But effectively, folks, what this means is you got to do what we're asking you to do, which is in large numbers, contact your state rep, contact your state senator, and tell them that you want the Texas Independence Referendum Act filed and passed. And you have to do that now. You have to do it now. I mean, I don't literally mean like 9:52 p.m. tonight, right? But you can't sleep on this, right? This is not a thing that you get to kind of shuck off to the side and maybe put away for later and then forget about. How desperately you want this has to be communicated to your legislators. And if they don't hear from you, then they have every justification to ignore what you want, ignore your wishes, ignore this issue. It's going to take overwhelming pressure to bring this to bear. One day we'll have that conversation about pushing at pillars of power versus, pulling at pillars of power versus pushing pillars of power. Two different approaches. But ultimately, you have to do one or the other. You can't sit there and twiddle your thumbs and expect change to happen. Okay? So be sure 100% that you get with your legislators. We are going to be sending out this draft legislation via email with a link for you to download and another link for those of you who have forgotten the guide that we sent out last time about how to effectively advocate for the Texas Independence Referendum Act to your legislators, right? That we have an entire video course on the thing, on the website. We have an entire printable guide. We'll have the legislation for you, and it will be going out. So be on the lookout for that. Don't sleep on it. All right. Let's get down to some of these questions really quickly. Let's deal with this one. Bad Brad, his question was about Abbott and the border. I heard Abbott signed an executive order that Texas has declared an invasion. Do you think he will now shut down the Texas border or do nothing? Pretty well covered that earlier. He declared an invasion, but his action steps are pretty much status quo. Okay. Let's take a look at this one. Marcio, this is an interesting one. He wants to know, what would the national anthem of Texas, what would be the national anthem of Texas? We have one. It's called Texas Our Texas. They just currently have it mislabeled as a state song, but we will teach them better, won't we? Okay. Let's see here. Nick Stevenson says, how can we get Texan on a ballot up for a vote if it is not already? This legislation must get filed. It'll come out of Ledge Council. It must be filed by a legislator. We want it filed in both the House and the Senate. So hence the instructions I gave a moment ago, which is you need to be contacting your state rep, state senator, and you're about to have ammunition to hand to them to say, this is what we want filed. And as a constituent, you have the right to do that. Okay. Here's one from Sam. This is a very valid question. He says, what effect does the large number of bills already filed in Austin have on our bill? Sam, there are so many bills filed every single solitary session. So it helps if you get it in early, right? It really does help if you get it in early. But right now, as those bills are filed, they'll go into first reading, and then they'll be assigned to committee, right? So to a certain extent, the order in which they're filed on the House side does not matter so much. It's the Senate side where it's kind of a thing, because they take bills in order, but they have a blocking bill, and then they suspend the rule to take them out of order. So it really is just sort of a game. So even bills that are filed late in the session can make it through the process, but it really depends on the will. You don't want it filed so late that it gives them the excuse to run out the clock on you. So we're working hard. We want to get it filed during pre-filing. That's why we got it, finally agreed with one of the legislators. Let's get it in the Ledge Council. Let's get the seal of approval. And that way, we can talk about who's going to file and who's going to be on it and kind of get all that worked out. But we want to get it done in pre-filing. We want it to have a low bill number. We had 1359 last time. I'd like to get a little bit lower in the ranks. But let's think about Kyle's bill. When he did the bill related to the Alamo, he specifically requested the bill number of 1836. So it doesn't necessarily matter. And you have to remember a ton of bills get filed every single session. Tons. I can't even remember what the stat was from last session, but it was ridiculous, even with COVID. Christopher says, do you think we can count on foreign support after TEXIT? I'm really concerned about Texas support before TEXIT, right? Like right now. That is the thing we need to be focused on. Not thinking about, okay, after TEXIT, I mean, there is an international recognition thing that you've got to contend with. Again, I would go back and recommend Dr. Quartrup's book, I Want to Break Free, where he talks about international recognition and keeping that in mind through your movement to gain independence. But that being said, the main focus is not for us to be thinking about that sort of thing right now. Oh, what would global support look like? Everybody wants to trade with everybody, right? So that's all we got to be concerned with. And so that's not going to be a big deal. International recognition sort of on the horizon, but the thing that's sitting in our view screen right now, the thing that is most closest to our face is the support of fellow Texians, right? So if we're at 66% of likely voters, right? Polling has shown even some of the lower stuff, we're at 60%, right? But however that works out, unless we convert those supporters and get them plugged in to the organization, get them organized, and focus them as a political power, then it's all moot, right? Support only matters in polls. What happens is if you don't convert that support into political movement and political momentum, you never achieve political power, you never achieve your political ends. Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, all political power is inherent in the people, right? So if the people have the political power but do nothing with it because they said, well, I support it, if it were ever to happen, then I would be for it. Well, that's not the way it works, right? So we have to amass that political power, aka the people, and we have to focus it in a specific direction, and then we get what we want. We focus it in like a laser, and zap, we get what we want. And what is that? We want a referendum on Texas independence, and we want to win the referendum on Texas independence, and then we actually want Texas to be a self-governing independent nation. So that's the focus, as it should be. But thank you for your question, Christopher. Let me go over here to email really quickly. Let's see what we've got. All right, I answered most of those already. Yeah, Terry submitted this. Terry over at Houston. He says the debt in question has been amassed in violation of the Constitution. 95+% of every dollar spent at federal agency is unconstitutional. I understand the sentiment, right? I totally get it, and I don't disagree. And I think that's why there are a lot of people that are thinking about this federal debt aspect and saying, okay, look, if they say we owe a percentage of it, what does that look like? And do we even owe a percentage of it? Right. So I think the question about its unconstitutionality is sort of one issue, but really and truly it becomes a moot issue if in fact by calculation or by international law or common standards internationally related to this sort of thing, it could be a moot point altogether. So there we have it. All right. Fun times, everyone. Well, that is a wrap. Right? I mean, we came in just about a minute late, but that's okay. Started a minute late, and we got a special guest. Like Paul's literally still sitting in the green room. I bet he's laughing. Hang on. Let's check. Let's see. Is Paul laughing? Yes, Paul is laughing. Okay. Just making sure. I had to see. All right. Well, guys, that's a wrap on Coffee Talk this week. Lots and lots to cover. It's going to be a dead run. We leave out of here pretty soon. I mean, we've got speaking in Abilene twice this weekend. Once on Friday, once on Saturday. It's going to be a leadership training in Abilene. Then we head into Thanksgiving week, and everyone, obviously, maybe we will do a coffee talk the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. I don't know. But I can imagine there's going to be a lot of things happening between now and the next time I see you. So, when it does, we'll get together over a cup of coffee and we'll talk about it. All right. If you have not already become a member of the Texas Nationalist Movement, I encourage you to head over to tnm.me/join. That is tnm.me/join. and become a member today. And of course, if you are already one of our registered supporters and have not volunteered, if you can't tell, the work that we have ahead of us is going to be momentous. It's going to be monstrous. We need all hands on deck. Beverly offered, I'm about to make you the happiest person on the stream tonight. As I say often, Sam Houston did not win San Jacinto with a bunch of cheerleaders, right? We need people out there working to help make this thing happen. Shoulder your part of the responsibility. Do your duty. Become a volunteer today. Head over to tnm.me/volunteer. And if you have not plugged into your local group, I would encourage you to do that right now as well. Head over to tnm.me/local groups. Find the nearest TNM local group nearest you. I think we're right about pretty close to 60 local groups throughout the state and rapidly advancing on other political organizations. I still feel like I could make my prediction that we will be have more of a field organization than the RPT by the end of the year. Guys, don't make me a liar. Head over to tnm.me/local groups. Find your local group. And if there's not one there, go start one. Step up. Be the leader that I know you can be. All right. As I said, my friends, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us. And so tonight I will leave you with the words that I leave you with every week. Not my words, but the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.
If you feel you've no real voice, and at the polls there's no good choice, and the best is a lesser evil, just who? And it is time for a real change. Instead of voting more of the same, only one solution restores the power of you. When Texan rights have been impaired, and it's gone on for many years, there's only one way left to correct it. You know Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. July the 4th, we celebrate an exit of the United States from a British Empire that denied them representation. Yeah, and history repeats, they say. Britain's past became their fate when a Brexit vote restored Britain's status as a nation. When the Constitution is ignored, state sovereignty thrown overboard, and all attempts to restore it have been rejected. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. So high, no limits seem to apply. Is this the future we want for our Lone Star? What if tax dollars stayed in our state and Texans had the final say? Well, that's a future I'd be happy to vote for. You see corruption in D.C. or want a real tax decrease? There's only one solution left, you guessed it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Are you tired of a government that acts so reckless? You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Do you love the This Lone Star State have countless reasons why it's great. Perhaps you believe that God blessed it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas. Go pledge your vote today for Texas. Sign up at Texas now.